What's going on, everybody? Jolt here from TheTokenMinorities, and I am bringing you the Season 4, Week 9 Battle of the NPL. This week in a rematch against the Colorado Avaluggs, coached by my friend Fog. Last week we did pick up our first loss of the season against Dallas Boy 1992 San Antonio Swampards, courtesy of some pretty poor preparation on my part and really just an unfortunate game overall for many reasons. And this week we're definitely looking to bounce back and prevent Fog from getting that revenge he definitely is wanting to get against me after being swept by Clefable in Week 5. So, before I dive in any further, I do want to announce a trade that happened on our team. This actually happened before the match last week, and I failed to mention it because I was still kind of heated about losing to Dallas, but we actually traded our Heliolisk for Raikou from the Atlanta Braviaries. So that's a trade that I think is going to benefit us tremendously because our team did kind of lack a little bit of speed control. Yeah, we have a lot of priority, and we do have some things that are pretty fast, namely Talonflame and Megaladios base 110. That's pretty good as well, but I really did have to lean on priority in order to outspeed threats, and Sneasel's not really the best offensive option in the world, as many of you know. So bringing in Raikou, which is base like 115 speed, I believe, as elf speed tier 361, that's going to be very, very useful because it does give me a better option against more bulky base 100s, or base 110s rather, such as Latias, which we'll see here next week as I take on Cheeseboy in my preparation there. But overall, I think Raikou fit my team very well, and I'm excited to see how it does in my final games this season. So, Fog actually has a little bit of a different team than last time as well. If you recall, last time we played him, he was the team that had Hoopa Unbound, Landorus T, Mew, Chansey, Rotom Wash, Klefki, Intake, Kyurem, Dugtrio, and Excelgor, and Mega Altaria, but now he has Doublade and Togekiss instead of Hoopa Unbound and Excelgor. So overall, I believe that actually makes preparation a little bit easier for me just because Hoopa Unbound is such a huge threat. Yeah, it has that quad weakness to Bug, but it's just so powerful and so good at breaking walls that it really would have given my team a hard time. However, Doublade is a little bit of a different animal in that it's very frail on the special defensive side, and I'm going to take advantage of that in my team building this week. However, offensively, Doublade is very powerful against my team, as if you look across my roster, I have one Ghost Resist, and its name is Sneasel, and that's not a resist to anything. So I'm going to have to prepare for Doublade very carefully. I also have to keep in mind that Double Dance Landorus Therian, meaning Swords Dance and Rock Polish set, is a huge threat to my team regardless of what I bring, so I need to make sure I have plenty of checks to that. I really don't have hard counters to it, unfortunately, but I can check it with many things, and as long as I can keep it in check, I shouldn't be able to be at risk of being swept by it. Mew, of course, is a threat just because it's the most versatile Pokemon in existence. It literally can't do anything. Luckily, in the case of Fog, he has brought defensive Mew almost every single time as his defogger. However, now with the acquisition of Togekiss, I definitely have to respect offensive Mew even more than I have in the past, and my team building will certainly reflect that here. I believe that's all I really have to say. The thought going into the building is going to be similar to last time. I want to make sure Mega Altaria is not a threat, and in doing so, I'll have a couple taunt users and basically just a bunch of things to outspeed it should it be able to, or out-prioritize it rather, should it be able to get up a couple Dragon Dances and like Rock Storm, Field, Talonflame, can't really deal with it, that kind of thing. I also need to keep in mind that Bandit Entei is a threat. I need to get my Toxic Orb up with Gliscor as soon as possible if I'm bringing Gliscor, which I will be. I'll talk about this here in a little bit as well. And overall, his defensive core, Chansey, Klefki, really isn't a huge threat to my team, but he has been known to bring it, so of course I'm going to have some fun tricks for that as well, and Dugtrio being able to trap a lot of my mons is also something to note. So let's go ahead and hop on over to the team builder and go into a little bit more detail. Alright, and here we are with the team, and as I mentioned before, Talonflame is really going to be essential this week, just because it is the best counter to Mega Altaria on my entire team, and I know for a fact Fog is going to be bringing Mega Altaria this week, just because he really thinks it has a good matchup against my team, and I disagree so much on that, but I know it's coming, so I'm definitely bringing Talonflame. Plus, even if he doesn't bring Mega Altaria, this is also a very good answer to things like Kyurem, as with this much special defense investment, Kyurem is not a threat at all. I can easily roost up on his Specs Ice Beam, and if he's going to be choice specs if he brings Kyurem. I have no doubt on that at all. So if he locks himself into Earth Power, then obviously I don't have to roost at all. If he locks himself into Ice Beam, I can roost up on the Ice Beam and take no damage. So this is very good against that. This is also not bad against Rotom, as if he brings a defensive Rotom, I can easily Wisp it and then roost up for days on it. And eventually he'll miss a Hydro Pump or he'll get worn down by the Wisp. And just overall, Talonflame handles that well. This also hard stops Chansey. It's a very good switch into Mew as well, at least an initial switch into Mew, as it's highly unlikely that he'll go for Stone Edge if he's an offensive Mew on the first turn he has it in. So that's something to keep in mind. This also helps me check Doublade with Will-O-Wisp and Taunt. So overall, this thing is just very, very good at keeping his team in a neutral stage. It prevents him from doing anything that could really threaten me. So overall, Talonflame is very good in the matchup, and I am outspeeding a neutral speed base 100, so namely offensive Mew if he's adamant or modest. So this also has to be Entei for that matter. But next up is the Gliscor. This is also going to be a Stallbreaker type set with Taunt, Toxic, Earthquake, and Roost. Now, last time I brought a Swords Dance variant against him, and it worked out decently well, although I wasn't really a fan of how Rotom was able to switch in essentially freely every single time. And just looking at his team and just looking at how much I bodied Chansey last time he brought it, essentially. I really don't expect him to bring Chansey this week, and Chansey is his only cleric, unless he brings like Heal Bell Mew, which I really I don't think he'll do that. But regardless, Chansey is his best cleric, so therefore I think because he's probably not going to bring Chansey, I'm going to spam some status this week, and I'm going to do so in the form of Will-O-Wisp on Talonflame and Toxic on Gliscor. Now, Toxic, Taunt, Earthquake actually hits his entire team for a very effective damage in that I can, at the very least, Toxic everything. The only thing that can stop this set is a Magnet Rise Klefki, which he brought in Season 2, I believe, when he had Klefki, but he hasn't brought it at all this season. I don't really know why. It actually is a pretty good idea against my team, but regardless, he didn't bring it last time. I don't really expect him to bring it this time either, and this set can just shut down his entire roster, which is fantastic. Even if he brings Hidden Power Ice on Landorus T, I really don't care. Even if he's a Swords Dance Landorus T, I really don't care, because a +2 Stone Edge, for one, is probably going to miss eventually, and two, I believe it only barely 2-hit KOs me, and then after Poison Heal, it probably doesn't at all, so I can get a Toxic up on it and Roost for days and be in good shape there. So overall, Gliscor is very, very good. I'm also speed creeping Adamant Altaria, because if he brings Altaria, there's no way it's going to be Jolly. That would make 0 sense against my team. So I'm definitely just going to creep Adamant and be in good shape there. I can always just taunt the Altaria and find out what kind of set he is. Of course, I'm going to scout with Talonflame first to find out if he's physically inclined or specially inclined, but regardless, this can check Altaria, prevent it from getting up any Cotton Guards or Dragon Dances, and this also is a fantastic switch into Togekiss, at least a standard Togekiss, as this cannot be paralyzed, of course, and I should outspeed defensive Togekiss with this, unless he wants to speed creep, which would be pretty impressive on his part if he decided to do that, but I'm not terribly concerned about that either. But overall, this should help me just wear down his team in general. It also serves as a hard counter to the Blade, as long as I have Taunt, the Blade is not a threat, and there's no way it can 1v1 me at all. So yeah, Talonflame and Gliscor, probably the win cons this week, but if you notice, they both are pretty weak to things like Rotom, especially if it's an offensive Rotom, so the rest of my team is going to be geared such that I can handle Rotom very well. Now, it is going to take a lot of mons to ensure that I can do that, because the only way to really beat Rotom with the team, with my roster, and not bringing Breloom, is to just chip it down little by little. So the rest of my team is not going to be threatened of being OHKO'd by Rotom, but I'm going to have to let him take a big hit if it is an offensive Rotom. So I'll start things off with a Life Orb Clefable. This is the first time I brought this season. I've really been wanting to do this for quite a while, and this spread is actually really effective against his entire team as well, as he really doesn't have anything outside of Chansey that wants to take a hit from this, and I can Calm Mind Softwell all over that Chansey, and with a Life Orb I will be able to beat it at +6. So that's something that's very, very nice to have in my back pocket. Also, having Fire Blast, Life Orb, max special attack gives me nearly 100% chance to OHKO standard Blade, meaning max HP 0 Spadef, and I think he could try to use Blade as his Clefable answer potentially, although it's more likely that he'll bring something along the lines of Aurora Entei, since that was what he tried to stop my Clefable with last time, although it was a Choice Banded set. I don't think he'll do Choice Band. He'll do like Leftovers Roar or something like that. But regardless, I don't think Clefable's going to be sweeping anybody this week. It's more just there to punch holes in his team, deal a lot of damage to Rotom if I can, and just prevent him from setting up with anything. Like, even Landers can't set up on this because I do like 70% with Moonblast, I believe. So it's a pretty good deal here. Now, next up is the Raikou. This is a Shed Shell variant. Now, I'm bringing Shed Shell because of the potential Doug Trio, and because of the fact that if he doesn't bring Doug Trio, this thing just destroys his entire team. So with the Shed Shell, it just destroys his entire team, essentially, as I can Volt Switch on essentially anything. The only things that can stop that are Landers, T, and Doug Trio. Doug Trio is just going to be bait for my Gliscor. It's a free Toxic Orb. If I don't have that yet, I can just get a free Toxic off on something. Or if he goes into Landers T, I find it unlikely that he'll be Choice Scarf, but of course I'll scout for it, but I can hit it with a Hidden Power Ice if it's not Choice Scarf or Yachi Berry. So just overall, this thing is very solid against his team, plus I have Shadow Ball coverage for the Doublade and for Mew and stuff like that, and just overall it's really good. It's a great speed tier against him as well. Next up is the Jirachi. Again, I have to run something to deter the Doug Trio because I don't want Doug Trio getting any cheap kills against me, and this time I'm going to do that in the form of a Shuka Berry, as this also is a useful item against the Landers T should it get up a Swords Dance or something, or at least a Rock Polish. I'm not sure if I can actually take an Earthquake with this investment from Landers T, but at least if it doesn't have +2, I'm easily going to be able to take a hit from it and deal a lot of damage with Water Pulse, maybe get a Confusion Hacks or something. But this thing's primary role is to just be my Rock blocker, and again to just keep things in check, as Jirachi's so naturally bulky that it can take a hit from essentially anything, and as long as it's not like a banded super effective attack, it should be able to live an attack from really anything on his entire roster, so that's pretty cool for sure. But Flash Cannon, Shadow Ball, Water Pulse, probably the best coverage options. I consider running Energy Ball instead of Shadow Ball, but I want to make sure Doblade does not have a chance to get +2 for free on anything. I want to be able to hit it hard on the special side, or at least taunt it with something, ensuring that it can't get out of hand. So this is probably the best moveset here, and I have enough speed to speed creep a Timid Kyurem. Now next up, and finally, it is my Mega Latios. This set, again, is just going to be a defogger. That's kind of been its primary role on my team this season, just because it is pretty naturally bulky, and I really don't need Mega Latios to be a sweeper. I do think Mega Latios has a ton of potential in the format, do not get me wrong, but on my team, its role has best been support, and in doing so I'm running Defog, Roost, and 2 attacks. This is going to be able to take hits from Rotom very well. It also could take hits from Entei if I absolutely need it to. It also is going to really deal a lot of damage to anything that wants to try to set up in my face, as I have super effective coverage for really the majority of his team, and really the only things he has that can hard stop this are like Assault Vest Entei perhaps, but I think I can actually beat Assault Vest Entei 1v1. But Klefki and Chansey can definitely stop me here if he tries to wall me with those. But otherwise, the coverage hits the rest of his team very well. So that's the team. I'm feeling pretty good about this team overall. I think it's probably a little bit better than the team I brought for him last time around. And that I think I have more threats. Raikou just brings such a new dynamic, such a good dynamic to my team that's going to be really helpful against Fog and against Cheese, and probably against Maddie as well in my remaining battles this season and into the playoffs. So I'm excited to see how this team works. Let's go ahead and hop on over to the battle, and I'll show you what happened. Alright, and here we are with the battle, and looking at team preview, it's looking pretty good. It's about what I expected, but the fact that he didn't bring Togekiss actually helps me a lot. It kind of gives me a peace of mind that he's probably going to be a defensive Mew, in that it'd be a defogger. I guess it could be offensive defog, but I'm going to side with the fact that it's probably defensive defog, as he has no switch-ins to a especially offensive Mega Latios otherwise, as if I just carried Ice Beam, I could do a bunch of damage to Altaria and Shadow Ball for Doblade, of course. So I think it's going to be especially defensive Mew with defog, and otherwise Entei is looking like his Clefable answer. Doblade is looking like he probably tried to set that up as his win condition, but my whole team beats that pretty well. Rotom, I don't know what kind it's going to be yet, but I'm not surprised to see it. Mega Altaria, I don't really care. My entire team's going to handle that pretty well, plus Talonflame shuts it down. Lando could be something special. It's probably Double Dance. I just kind of expected it to be Double Dance going in, because I did allude to the fact that a Double Dance Landers T would have been very good against my team in the last video, if you recall, and if Fog watched my videos, which I'm pretty sure he does, he probably decided to build that here to see how I would respond. So that's kind of my initial thought at team preview. I'm going to go ahead and lead with Raikou, as Raikou really has a great matchup against his entire team, and if he leads Rotom, I can weaken that very nicely, and that's obviously the goal here. I want to weaken Rotom and then win with my Stall Breaker. So let's go ahead and jump on into the battle and see what happens. Alright, so he leads off with Rotom as I lead off with Raikou, so that's excellent. This is going to be a free Thunderbolt if he decides to stay in, and I do get the damage off, and that damage was a little bit strange, and so was that. So I'm going to pause here. I actually had to take a lot of time to run some calcs here on this damage, because this is not something that I really expected to see. At first I thought it was an Assault Vest Rotom with max special attack, but the damage rolls were just outside the range of that, so I came to the conclusion this is probably a specially defensive Rotom with choice specs, so that's something I need to keep in mind for sure, as he's probably going to try to trick my Clefable later on. Or maybe even my Gliscor or something, I'm not really sure. But that's something I definitely need to keep in mind. But because he has choice specs, this definitely can OHKO my Talonflame. So Talonflame is in no way going to be a counter or a check to Rotom this game. So I definitely have to play with that in mind. But continuing, I just go for the Volt Switch for more damage on the Rotom. And of course, it would be nice momentum against whatever he decided to bring in. Just going to go straight into my Latios, as it feels pretty safe. And I know he's probably locked into Hydro Pump due to the choice specs. So now I am going to go ahead and take this as an opportunity to Mega Evolve and just go for this safe Shadow Ball. It hits really his entire team for at least neutral coverage, or neutral damage, and actually super effective against the Mew. And I really have no reason to do anything but Shadow Ball, as his most likely play is to roost up, trying to get back up to full health, or try to go for Stealth Rocks or something. But he just goes for the knockoff, I guess, expecting my switch into something like Gliscor, which is a-okay with me. I do get the Spadef drop, which I guess is a little bit unfortunate, but he was still in range of Shadow Ball anyways, and he decides to sack it, so it was inconsequential to that end. Here he goes into the Blade, and my best play is to just go straight into Talonflame, as I do not want to let it get out of hand, and I don't really want Megalodios to take a Shadow Sneak at that point, because it does still have some good utility against the Specs Rotom locked into a Hydro Pump, so I definitely was not going to sack it there. I do get a little lucky and dodge the Hydro Pump with my Clefable. I'll pause here briefly. I was expecting him to actually go for Shadow Ball with the Rotom on that turn, expecting my Megalodios, but he does just go for the Hydro Pump. He misses. That's a little unfortunate for him, but I could have just gone straight into my Megalodios if he did hit, and I still would have Clef around later on to do damage to something, and I also would be able to get all my health back, or 50% of my health back with Latios, as he'd be locked into Hydro Pump, and I'd be able to roost up on it. So not terribly consequential there in my opinion. But anyways, he goes into his Entei on the Clefable, which is fine. It's just going to take a Life 4 max special attack Moonblast, and doesn't take it well at all. And here he makes a double, I guess expecting me to switch, but I was just going to scout for the investment on it and just go for the soft build, as I know I could take any hit from Entei pretty well. And he decides to just go for the Hydro Pump with his Rotom and sacrifice it to the Moonblast. So Clefable picks up the kill, which is pretty nice there. Now here, I have to respect Double Dance Landers. I have to just attack this, get it in range of Talonflame, get it in range of my other threats if he decides to just Swords Dance instead of Rock Polish. So I just go for the Moonblast. I have to sack my Clefable there, but that's fine. I'm going to be able to get a bunch of damage on the Lando and scare it out now with the Megalodios. And I'm just going to go for the safe Shadow Ball, as it does KO any Landers T from that range. He's obviously not a Assault Vest, so there's no way he can take it, and Doublade does not take it well at all. But now he's in range of Earthquake from the Gliscor, so I really don't have to fear him going for the Swords Dance or something here, and eat up that Shadow Sneak very well. Now here he goes into his Altaria. Unfortunately, I missed the Toxic, but he could have still used Natural Cure since he had not Mega Evolved yet. But regardless, I'm just going to switch back into my Talonflame here. I could have taunted in there, but I didn't know if it was going to be a specially attacking one. And if he was a special Altaria, Hyper Voice would have done a crap ton of damage to Gliscor, and I still needed Gliscor at high health to handle Entei and Doublade, so not worth the risk there. And now I am just going to activate my Altaria trap card, I guess, in that I'm just going to taunt it and Brave Bird down the substitute. Turns out to be a sub roost set, which really isn't super effective against my team in my opinion, but I'll be interested in hearing his thoughts behind that set. But anyway, I make a somewhat risky play in going for Roost there, as easily could have had Earthquake and gone for it on that turn, but I thought it was pretty safe enough. And regardless, I'm just going to go into my Rachi. I'm going to pause here. This is a Chocoberry Jirachi, as you recall from the team building process, and in his eyes, this was a 50-50, and that I might have been scared of the Rock Polish Landers T, and that it really could have hit the majority of my team. He probably expected me to go into Gliscor, but I really had no reason to go into Gliscor, because I don't want him to get the Double Dance for one, so I don't want to switch. Two, I have the Chocoberry, so I can survive an Earthquake from this thing easily and just kill it with a Water Pulse. So he kind of over-predicted on this turn. He probably should have just gone for the Earthquake to put me in range of Shadow Sneak from Doublade, but unfortunately for him, that just doesn't really work out in his favor, and I'm able to KO the biggest threat to my team remaining, the Landers T, with a Water Pulse from Jirachi. Now here he goes into Entei, and we kind of play around. Oh, not yet, sorry. So he pulls a double into his Altaria for some reason. I guess he was expecting me to switch into my Gliscor, which is fine. I could have just taunted it anyway, so it's not a huge deal. But Jirachi is able to pick up the KO with a Flash Cannon on Altaria, and that did a lot more damage than I expected it to. It might have been a high roll. I didn't actually calc it because the game was pretty much locked up at this point. But Doublade is not going to be able to take me out with the Shadow Sneak, and I'm going to be able to KO that with Jirachi. Now here is where we start playing around a little bit, because he wanted to show me his set. He was actually a Howl set, so I let him go ahead and go for the Howl, but he's going to essentially throw the game at this point, because he doesn't want to win on critical hits and such from a +1 Entei whenever I allowed him to get it. So that's why these last few turns are going to look a little bit awkward, but yeah, we are going to go ahead and pick up the victory, but I'm going to have to sacrifice my Jirachi in the process, making it a 4-0 victory as I KO the Entei with my Talonflame on the next turn. So with that said, the Toronto Raptors do avenge their loss last week to Dallas in the form of a 4-0 victory against the Foghorn Channel. We are now 8-1 with a +23 differential, still #1 overall in the league, however #2 in the power rankings. And next week, we actually face the #1 team in the power rankings now, and that is going to be Cheeseboy628's Phoenix Sunkern. He is on an absolute tear these past few weeks. He's beaten all the top teams. He hasn't lost since we defeated him week 3. That's how good he's been playing, and he's been preparing so much better than he has at any other time in his NPL career. So I am really excited for that battle, and I'm hoping it's a good one. I'm going to prepare very hard for that one, as if I defeat Cheese, I clinch the division. I've already clinched a spot in the playoffs, but if I defeat Cheese, I clinch the division and I clinch the #1 overall seed. If I lose to Cheese, then I have to beat Maddie Brawlick, that is by a pretty substantial differential, to be able to claim the #1 overall seed. So it's going to be a tough series of games here coming up. But the good news is, if I do beat Cheese next week, then Maddie is someone I'm not going to have to show my hand for, as he is already a guaranteed playoff team, pretty much guaranteed to be the 3 seed from our conference, meaning that he'll play in the first round of the playoffs regardless against most likely the loser of me and Cheese next week. And I don't really want to show my hand to him in week 11, so I want to obviously keep my good strats in my head until they actually matter, and that's in the playoffs. So that's about all I have to say on that. Next week is going to be a huge game. Definitely stay tuned for that, and I guess we'll see you guys there. So have a good one, guys. Peace.